In this video, the learning target that we're going to look at is I can identify the max and min, domain and range, vertex, axis of symmetry, and the intervals of increasing and decreasing when given a parabola. So we're just going to make a list of everything and we're going to look off of this graph over to the right. So the first thing we're going to find is the vertex. Now, if you remember, the vertex is sort of like this point. It can either be at the top of the parabola or the bottom of the parabola, depending on which way the arrows go. But it's sort of in the middle. It's where it bends. So the vertex here is at the point 3 on the x-axis and up 1, 2, 3, 4 on the y-axis. So I would say the vertex is at 3, 4. The axis of symmetry then is the line upon which the parabola is symmetrical, so it cuts the parabola in half. Okay, so that's the line that's going through the vertex, and it's cutting through x is equals 3. So the axis of symmetry is x equals 3. Remember that one thing you can kind of check is that because the vertex falls on the axis of symmetry, this number should always match the x coordinate of the vertex. All right, looking at the domain then, remember domain is your x's, so you're looking at your x-axis, and you're thinking about how far to the left does the parabola go? Well, the parabola, because it's an arrow, right, this is just going to keep trailing left forever, slowly but sure, it's just going to keep going left. So it's going to head towards negative infinity. And then similarly, the right arrow is going to keep trailing right forever, so it's going to head towards positive infinity. So the domain is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity or all real numbers. You can write it either way. The range then is kind of a similar idea, but rather than looking at the x-axis, the range deals with our y's, we're looking at the y-axis. So we're thinking about the lowest point on our graph, the lowest it goes, and then the highest it goes. Well, the lowest it goes, once again, they're arrows, right? So it's just going to keep getting lower. So the lowest it goes is negative infinity, and then the highest it goes is 4. So we would say that the range goes from negative infinity to 4. And then remember, we want to include the 4, so we need to have the square bracket there. Okay, square bracket means it's included. Then looking at the max and min, I don't have a minimum value here. The reason why there's no minimum is because the arrow is always going down, it's trailing off to negative infinity, so there's no minimum. But I do have a maximum, right? The highest point that the graph reaches is at 4, so we would say that there's a maximum of 4 there. Lastly, we want to label the graph where it's increasing and decreasing. And when I do this, I like to think of myself on a roller coaster. And when we read a graph, we always read left to right. So picture yourself on the left side of this roller coaster and you can kind of trace it with your finger, if you will. As we ride this roller coaster, notice that the line is sloping up, right? We're climbing the hill, so to speak. So this side would be increasing. So I'm going to write INC for increasing. And then when I get to the top of the hill, it's going to slope downwards. It's going to be decreasing down the back side here. Okay, so increasing this side, decreasing that side. All right, let's go ahead and look at one more example of doing this real quick. So here I have a graph, okay? Notice it's upside down from the previous one. And we want to find the same thing. So this time the vertex at the bottom of the graph. And you'll notice zeros here, so it's over to -1, and it's down 1, 2, 3. So it's at -1, -3. The axis of symmetry, once again, runs through the vertex. Okay, and so because it's cutting through -1, we would say that the axis of symmetry is the vertical line x equals -1. The domain, well, the arrow goes forever to the left and this arrow goes forever to the right. So your x's are running from negative infinity to positive infinity. And then for the range, once again, it's like the domain, but we're thinking about the y's. We're thinking about the lowest value to the highest value. Well, the lowest value is -3, and then the highest value, the arrows are just always going up, so it's going to go towards positive infinity. So we would say that the range is -3 to positive infinity. And once again, remember, -3 here, we need it closed so it gets the square bracket. And another thing that just came to mind that I forgot to mention is when we write these intervals, we need to make sure we write the lowest number or least number to the greatest number. Okay, so lowest to biggest, lowest to biggest is how we normally order those. All right, then moving on to max and min. We don't have a maximum in this case because it's always going up, but we do have a minimum, right? The lowest value is at -3 here, so we would have a minimum of -3. And then the very last thing is labeling increasing and decreasing. So once again, I start on the left side. I like to think of myself on a roller coaster, and then I trace it with my finger. So as I'm tracing, I'm going down, right? My finger's tracing down the roller coaster, so this is decreasing. And then when I hit the bottom, and then when I trace up the other side, it's increasing on that side. All right, hopefully this video is helpful when finding these characteristics of a parabola.